Shortly after Jean and Rachel completed their junior year at college, my younger sibling's partner approached me with an unusual request. Each year, the club affiliated with her parents hosts a grand ball where the daughters of members and sponsored guests are formally introduced to society. Initially, this tradition symbolized the debut of young women into the marriage market. However, over time, it evolved into a lavish social occasion celebrating the coming of age of these young ladies. Rachel mentioned that her parents planned to present her formally this December. Jean had interacted with Rachel's parents frequently, and their relationship appeared to be positive. As their relationship deepened, Rachel disclosed Jean's alter ego, Ava, and his fondness for feminine attire. Her parents' only concerns revolved around Jean's genuine affection for Rachel, his respectful treatment towards her, and her reciprocal feelings for him. After Rachel assured them of Jean's kindness, sweetness, and his feminine aspect enhancing his appeal, her father expressed unconditional acceptance of Jean or Ava in their home. Overjoyed, Rachel embraced her parents tightly, grateful for their understanding. Since Rachel's parents already held a favorable opinion of Jean, even after Rachel revealed his feminine persona to them, they proposed the idea of Ava also being presented alongside Rachel for her debut. Although Rachel found the idea appealing, she wanted to ensure Jean's willingness before proceeding. "Amanda, I wouldn't want to cause any discomfort or embarrassment to Jean. If you believe he might not be comfortable with this, please let me know," Rachel expressed. "I want him to genuinely enjoy this experience, not feel obliged because I asked. Based on my observations of him, both in person and in the photos you shared of him as your bridesmaid and wearing your wedding gown, I believe presenting Ava in a formal setting would be a wonderful opportunity and something he might appreciate. What are your thoughts?" "Rachel, I think it's a fantastic idea. Have you discussed this with Ava?" I inquired. "I've only mentioned my debut in December to him," Rachel replied. "And how did he react to that?" I probed. He briefly drifted into a dreamy expression before commenting that the event sounded pleasant and would be wonderful for you, I relayed. "Rachel, his response to your debut suggestion might hint at a desire to experience it himself, albeit he may struggle to express it directly. Otherwise, he might just fantasize about it indefinitely. You should discuss your parents' offer with him and gauge his feelings," I advised. Rachel seemed invigorated by the reassurance. We made plans for the three of us to have lunch the following Saturday, where we would broach Rachel's idea to Ava. I arranged for my mom to babysit my daughter while we prepared Jean/Ava for a lunch outing with her sister and fiancé. Rachel designated me as Ava's sponsor, and I would don a long gown for the occasion. We would all dine together during the event. Rachel's father generously offered to cover all expenses, including our attire, lingerie, footwear, hair, and makeup. Touched by his generosity, I embraced Rachel and thanked her father. As we realized how late it had become, we shared one final hug before parting ways until Saturday. Early Saturday morning, I dropped my daughter, Emma, off at my mom's for a day of spoiling. I subtly mentioned to Mom that Ava, Rachel, and I had plans for lunch that afternoon before leaving. She gave me a knowing nod as I left. My partner had left the previous day for a professional conference that spanned from Saturday to Wednesday, leaving me with the house to myself. I swiftly changed into beige satin lingerie and then proceeded to apply my makeup and style my hair. I dressed in a beige silk blouse paired with a skirted suit in the same shade. My chosen gold jewelry complemented my ensemble, and I slipped into 3-inch heels to complete the look. A few spritzes of perfume later, I was ready to step out. Just as I finished getting ready, the doorbell chimed. I answered it to find Jean and Rachel waiting outside. Rachel looked elegant in a full-skirted silk dress and heels, while Jean, unfortunately, was dressed in his usual male attire instead of Ava's. Upon entering, I praised Rachel for her elegant appearance. She expressed her disappointment that Ava wasn't with us. Following Rachel's lead, I suggested to Jean that he might prefer changing into something more suitable and comfortable to join Rachel and me for lunch as Ava. His eyes sparkled at the idea. After receiving Rachel's nod of approval, he responded, "Amanda, that sounds lovely. I'm sure you have something nice for me to wear. I grinned and assured Ava that my wardrobe was at her disposal, promising she would look just as lovely as Rachel and I. With that, we headed to my room to transform Jean into Ava. Without hesitation, Jean discarded his male attire while I prepared a set of white satin lingerie and stockings for him. He stood confidently unclothed as Ava, ready to be dressed. After securing the garter belt around her waist, Ava carefully donned the black stockings and attached them to her garters. I provided her with a sanitary pad for her panties, sharing a knowing smile with Rachel. Once everything was in place, Ava fastened her bra effortlessly, while Rachel tenderly positioned the silicone forms into the cups. A white satin slip gracefully descended over Ava's body, eliciting a sensation of luxurious comfort. I directed Ava to the vanity, where I draped a pink shampoo cape over her. While Rachel styled Ava's flowing hair, I carefully applied makeup to enhance her features. With a final touch of lipstick and a spritz of hairspray, Ava looked stunning. Rachel removed the cape as I fetched a pair of elegant 4-inch black patent heels for Ava. She effortlessly slipped them on, then gracefully donned her dress, a beautiful blue silk with a full skirt. After adorning herself with the gold jewelry I had chosen, Ava sprayed a hint of perfume and grabbed her purse. Rachel embraced her, expressing, "I'm thrilled that Ava is joining us today. She's becoming increasingly significant in my life as we plan for our future together." Ava blushed and smiled in response to Rachel's words. With my purse and car keys in hand, we set off for our ladies' lunch, hoping for an enthusiastic reception to Rachel's proposal. We drove to a serene country inn where I had made prior reservations. During the journey, we engaged in light conversation about various trivial matters. Glancing in the rearview mirror, I noticed Ava and Rachel sitting closely together in the back seat, despite having ample space, holding hands throughout the drive. Upon our arrival at the inn, I observed Ava gracefully exiting the car and assisting Rachel with her exit. Ava inquired if she looked presentable, to which Rachel reassured her that she looked fine. Inside the inn, the hostess accommodated my request for a secluded corner table and escorted us to our seats. As Ava and Rachel settled into their chairs, they simultaneously adjusted their skirts. Once we had placed our meal orders, Ava addressed us both, questioning, "What's on your minds, ladies?" "Amanda, while you know I enjoy embracing my feminine side, you were rather swift in suggesting that I change into women's clothing for today's public lunch." "And Rachel, typically we reserve Ava's presence for our private moments together. Why the sudden openness to having Ava join you in public today?" Rachel paused briefly before speaking. "Ava, you recall when I mentioned my upcoming debut at the club this December. I sensed a fleeting wistfulness in your eyes, as if you were envisioning yourself in a long white dress debuting alongside me. At that time, I wasn't sure if I should discuss my additional desires regarding my debut with you. So, I sought advice from your sister, Amanda." Ava exchanged puzzled looks between Rachel and me, seemingly unsure why Rachel sought my opinion on her debut. Rachel swiftly continued, "When you proposed, I realized I needed to disclose Ava to Mom and Dad before they learned of her existence inadvertently. To my surprise, they accepted your alter ego with open arms. They're delighted that I've found someone as kind and sweet as you, who embraces her softer side too. Now, both my parents want you to play an active role in my debut, not merely as a bystander but as a young lady making her own debut. Amanda and I agreed it's a great opportunity for you to introduce Ava formally. However, I don't want to pressure you into it or make you feel obligated. I'm happy whenever I'm with you, whether as Jean or Ava. I love you and want you to have the chance to openly enjoy being Ava. I want you to do this because it's what you genuinely desire for your debut." Unsurprisingly, Ava sat in silence, taken aback by Rachel's request. It took her a few moments to collect herself, fighting back tears of joy and gathering her thoughts. When she finally spoke, she turned to Rachel and said, "I'm deeply moved by your generous offer and that of your parents. It would be a tremendous honor to debut alongside you. However, I wouldn't want to overshadow your moment or cause any discomfort to you or your parents." Rachel responded, "It's our special night, Ava. Your presence only adds to the joy of the occasion. Seeing you in a long white gown beside me enhances the significance of the evening. The thought of us debuting together fills me with excitement. You couldn't possibly do anything to make me or my parents uncomfortable. I'm thrilled that you've agreed to share this unforgettable experience with me in such a meaningful way." Following their embrace, Rachel and Ava were visibly moved, tears of happiness streaming down their cheeks. After a moment, Rachel proposed they retreat to the ladies' room to touch up their makeup, a suggestion Ava readily agreed to. They excused themselves and hurried off to rectify the smudges caused by their tears of joy. Soon after, they returned to the table, their makeup restored, radiating with the unique happiness derived from sharing special moments, emotions, and joys. During lunch, we discussed the December event. Rachel informed Ava that I would serve as her sponsor since her parents could only sponsor one girl at a time unless they were twins or triplets. Ava expressed excitement and gratitude for my involvement in her debut. Her enthusiasm grew upon learning that her parents would cover the expenses for the gowns, lingerie, shoes, hair, and makeup for all three of us. Rachel suggested we begin gown shopping around the end of July to allow ample time for any necessary alterations before the December event. Curious about the typical style of debut gowns, Ava inquired. Rachel explained that while gown styles vary slightly, the basic design features a fitted waist that flares into a full skirt. Some gowns may boast additional embellishments like seed pearls or bows, though strapless styles are discouraged. Each girl typically wears heels, not exceeding 4 inches, and elbow-length white gloves. I could see Ava already envisioning herself in her own white gown. After a lengthy and relaxed lunch focused entirely on the girls' upcoming debut, we departed in the late afternoon and made our way back to my place. I offered Ava the chance to change back into jean before they left, but Rachel interjected, expressing her parents' eagerness to meet Ava. She insisted they head over immediately to introduce Ava to her parents, despite Ava's initial doubts. I assured Ava she could return the dress and lingerie at any time, and Jean's clothes would remain here until he collected them. With heartfelt thanks and hugs from both Rachel and Ava, they set off to meet her parents. Ava felt more nervous meeting Rachel's parents this time than she had during her initial introduction to them. Rachel continuously reassured Ava that her parents were not intimidating monsters and encouraged her to relax and be herself around them. As they pulled into the driveway, Rachel offered Ava a supportive glance and squeezed her knee, indicating that her fears were unfounded. Despite her lingering doubts, Ava managed a nervous smile in response to Rachel's reassurance. Before entering, Ava sought reassurance from Rachel once more, asking if she looked presentable. Rachel assured her that she looked fine and advised her to relax and just be herself. Upon entering the family room, Rachel's parents, Thomas and Elizabeth Miller, were engrossed in a movie. Rachel led Ava over to them and made the introductions. "Mom, Dad," Rachel began, "I'd like you to meet my dear friend Ava. Although you've met Mom and Dad in a different guise before, I wanted you to formally meet Ava, who's a very special part of my life." Elizabeth Miller rose from the couch and warmly embraced Ava. "Rachel has spoken so highly of you, Ava," she said. "I've been eager to meet you ever since she first mentioned you. Step back a bit so I can have a good look at you. Give us a twirl too, let me see the whole ensemble." Ava spun around, showcasing her dress and offering a glimpse of her lacy satin slip. "You're quite lovely, and that blue dress suits you beautifully. Is it your own? Those heels really accentuate your legs, and I adore the satin lingerie." "Is it satin?" Elizabeth inquired. Ava explained that she borrowed the dress from her sister Amanda for their lunch outing as young ladies. She confirmed that her lingerie was indeed satin and admitted to enjoying its feel on her skin. She also confessed to wearing a sanitary pad, even at that moment. Elizabeth smiled knowingly, remarking that it was one of the inconveniences women had to contend with. Mr. Miller approached and embraced Ava as well. "When Rachel mentioned your feminine side, I wasn't sure what to expect," he admitted. "My concerns ranged from the fear that you might look like a man awkwardly trying to dress as a woman, to the worry that you might appear as some sort of inappropriate spectacle. However, seeing you dressed so elegantly, with your hair and makeup impeccably done, I must say you've surpassed my expectations. You're truly a beautiful young woman. It's clear why Rachel holds both aspects of you in equal regard. We now understand that who you are matters far more than what you wear. Mrs. Miller and I are genuinely happy for both you and Rachel, and we wish you every happiness in your life together. Regarding your debuts, I have no doubt that both you and Rachel will look stunning in your white gowns come December. Ava blushed at his praise but managed to express gratitude to the Millers for their generous offer to sponsor her debut alongside Rachel. Mr. Miller humbly dismissed Ava's thanks, stating it was the least he could do to ensure his daughter's happiness on her special day. After some further conversation, Elizabeth turned to Ava and proposed, "You seem to be about the same size as me. Would you like to try on some of my clothes to see how they fit? I'd love to see you in different outfits." Uncertain of how to respond, Ava sought guidance from Rachel. Rachel agreed with her mom's suggestion, eager for Elizabeth to see Ava in a variety of clothing. After a moment's consideration, Ava consented to the impromptu fashion show. The trio then made their way to Elizabeth's spacious bedroom and her well-stocked closets. As Rachel assisted Ava in removing her dress, Elizabeth began selecting various outfits from the closet. She complimented Ava on the beauty of her lingerie, causing Ava to blush, both from the compliment and the realization of being in her future mother-in-law's bedroom wearing satin lingerie. Ava tried on a variety of dresses in silk, satin, and taffeta. For some of Mrs. Miller's longer dresses, Elizabeth provided Ava with an ankle-length white satin slip. With the satin cocktail dresses, Ava donned one of Elizabeth's crinolines before putting on the dress. Elizabeth remarked on how well everything fit Ava, mentioning that Ava now had access to her entire wardrobe, just like Rachel. As Rachel sat at the vanity enjoying the fashion show, she assisted Ava in and out of the various outfits. Whenever an outfit particularly suited Ava, Rachel would have her pose for a few pictures. After a few hours, Ava thought they were nearing the end, and Elizabeth assured her they were, with only a few more outfits left to try on. The first of these remaining outfits was a two-piece dressy blue maternity ensemble. As Ava tried it on, Mrs. Miller mentioned she had worn it several times while pregnant with Rachel. Ava shared that when her sister Amanda was pregnant with Emma, they would often shop for and wear maternity clothes together. Rachel complimented Ava on how lovely she looked in the maternity outfit and suggested they find a few more outfits each. However, Rachel's mom cautioned against rushing into wearing maternity clothes. Rachel simply smiled at her mother's remark. The subsequent ensemble was a charming square dance dress crafted from dark blue and white satin, complete with two stiffened petticoats and ruffled panties. Elizabeth provided a white satin camisole, as Ava's slip would be unsuitable under this dress. As Rachel assisted her in donning it, Ava remarked on its pleasant softness. Given its shorter length, Ava felt somewhat exposed, but both Elizabeth and Rachel assured her of her charming appearance. Elizabeth even suggested they might go square dancing sometime, with Ava wearing this outfit. The final attire was a striking long red satin gown and matching jacket, Elizabeth's personal favorite. Ava once more wore the long slip before slipping into this exquisite gown, which hugged her figure flawlessly. Rachel handed Ava the jacket, which she gracefully draped over her shoulders. As Ava admired her reflection in the mirror, Rachel captured the image of a radiant young woman in a stunning red gown on camera. As the realization of the late hour dawned on them, Ava swiftly changed back into her blue dress, while Rachel assisted her mother in returning the outfits to the closet. Before leaving, Thomas and Elizabeth expressed their delight at finally meeting Ava. In return, Ava embraced each of them warmly, grateful for their kindness, both on this occasion and in relation to her upcoming debut. Elizabeth expressed her anticipation for gown shopping with her daughters and Ava's sister. Finally, bidding each other good night, everyone departed for their respective homes. When Rachel initially broached the idea of Ava making her debut in December, the prospect of gown shopping at the end of July or beginning of August seemed distant, with the actual event even further off. However, time has a way of slipping by faster than anticipated. Before we realized it, the last week of July had arrived. Elizabeth Miller had been in regular contact with me, discussing every detail of the upcoming event, from the style of gown I should wear to the nail polish colors for Ava and Rachel. Ava had become a frequent visitor in the Miller household, and Elizabeth thoroughly enjoyed having my little sister around. On numerous occasions, she even took Ava and Rachel shopping for clothes. I heard Ava came back with some stunning outfits. Once, Elizabeth took the girls shopping for maternity wear, and each returned with a selection of dresses, two-piece ensembles, jumpers, blouses, and several sets of maternity lingerie. Additionally, the Millers often treated the girls to dinners at the club, affording Ava the opportunity to dress in some of Mrs. Miller's satin cocktail dresses and crinolines. After our lunch that Saturday, I informed Mom about Rachel's request for Ava to make her debut in December alongside her. Naturally, Mom was thrilled with the idea and promised not to broach the subject until Ava brought it up herself. We scheduled our gown shopping day for the first Saturday in August, agreeing to meet at Mom's place. That Saturday morning, I dressed in my satin bra, panties, and slip, opting to skip the stockings and garter belt due to the warm weather. Instead, I wore knee-highs. My attire comprised a sleeveless cotton blouse, a full denim skirt falling to my knees, and 2-inch heels. After preparing my daughter Emma for her day with her grandmother, we set off. During the journey, Emma chattered excitedly. I informed her that she would be seeing Aunt Ava today, which thrilled her, as she had grown accustomed to having both an Uncle Gene and an Aunt Ava who were one and the same person. Upon our arrival, Emma eagerly ran to greet her Aunt Ava and her future Aunt Rachel, embracing them warmly. Mom and Elizabeth had spent the time conversing and getting acquainted. Ava was dressed in a simple pink shirtwaist dress, knee-highs, and low heels, while Rachel and her mom wore sleeveless white blouses paired with denim culottes. We all wore light makeup. After instructing Emma to behave for her grandmother, we embarked on our gown shopping expedition. Elizabeth was aware of a lovely bridal and formal gown boutique not too far away, so she provided us with directions. Rachel and Ava sat closely in the back, their hands intertwined like the young couple they were. Upon arriving, I parked near the salon, and we all made our way inside. We decided to focus on finding gowns for Rachel and Ava first, with Elizabeth and me planning to select ours afterward. As we entered, we were warmly greeted by Beverly, the sales associate, who inquired about the type of gowns we were seeking. Elizabeth took the lead, expressing our priority for 2 white gowns for Rachel and Ava's December debuts. If time allowed, we would then search for gowns for ourselves that evening, ensuring they complemented the girls' attire and each other's. Beverly applauded our early start and mentioned they had just received a new shipment of gowns that would likely meet our needs. Leading us to the racks displaying debutante gowns, she explained the various styles and necklines available. Ava and Rachel began browsing through the gowns in their sizes, each selecting 3 to try on. Elizabeth and I stood nearby, ready to assist them during the fitting process. During the fitting, Ava first tried on a gown with a straight neckline, a fitted bodice, and a flowing skirt adorned with a satin bow at the back. After I zipped her into it, she looked stunning. The second gown was simpler, featuring a square neckline and no bow at the back. The third option boasted a rounded neckline with sequins and seed pearls embellishing the bodice, cascading from just below the chest. Like the others, it also had a satin bow at the back. Ava appeared beautiful in all 3 choices. Meanwhile, Rachel would emerge from her fitting room with each new gown, also looking lovely. Elizabeth and I exchanged glances, pondering which dress would be the perfect fit for each girl. After careful consideration, Ava settled on the first gown she had tried on. To everyone's surprise, Rachel had independently chosen the same gown, unaware of Ava's selection. What was even more remarkable was that both gowns fit flawlessly, requiring no alterations. Ava and Rachel then decided to coordinate under their gowns as well. They opted for matching white satin lingerie sets, including bras, panties, garter belts, and ankle-length full slips. As they giggled and chatted like schoolgirls while making their choices, Elizabeth and I observed. Additionally, they both selected identical 3-inch heels, white evening bags, and elbow-length satin gloves. Now that Ava and Rachel had made their selections, it was time for us elders to find our gowns. As we began browsing, Elizabeth encouraged me to choose a gown based on my preferences and fit, rather than being swayed by the price tag. Seeing my hesitation, she assured me that her husband could easily afford this shopping spree multiple times over. With Ava and Rachel offering their input, Ava suggested a strapless gown for me, but I felt it wouldn't be suitable for the occasion and politely declined. After selecting 3 options each from the stunning collection of evening gowns, Elizabeth and I headed to the fitting rooms with the girls in tow. With Ava's assistance, I tried on the first gown, a black satin ensemble with sheer sleeves and a rounded neckline. Taking a moment to assess my reflection, I moved on to the second, a sleeveless royal blue satin gown accompanied by a matching jacket. Again, I contemplated my appearance. Lastly, I tried on a sleeveless gown in deep green satin with a straight neckline. Instantly, I felt it was the perfect choice for me, a sentiment echoed by Ava, who nodded in agreement. "Amanda, you look absolutely stunning in that gown," she remarked, a sentiment I wholeheartedly shared. As I was trying on the third gown, Rachel and Elizabeth joined me in the fitting room. Elizabeth looked stunning in a sleeveless burgundy satin gown with a square neckline, carrying the matching jacket. Before I could compliment her appearance, Elizabeth remarked, "Amanda, that gown was simply made for you. It's absolutely perfect. And what do you think of my choice?" I returned the compliment, noting how her gown suited her flawlessly. We shared a laugh as my words mirrored her own. After changing back into our regular clothes, Elizabeth and I picked out our 3-inch heels and instructed Beverly to have them dyed to match our gowns. She assured us they'd be ready in a week. We also selected lingerie in coordinating colors, deep green for mine and burgundy for Elizabeth's. Elizabeth suggested elbow-length satin gloves and a sheer wrap in green to complement my gown, a suggestion both Ava and Rachel agreed with. Additionally, we chose evening bags to match our gowns. Just before Beverly was about to total up the bill, Elizabeth noticed a display of bridal negligées nearby. She encouraged Rachel and Ava to each pick out a heavenly white satin wedding negligée for themselves. Both girls selected form-fitting negligées in white satin with intricate lace detailing and sheer peignoirs. Elizabeth watched with a knowing smile as the girls made their selections from the heavenly array. I expressed my gratitude to Elizabeth for her kindness throughout our shopping trip, particularly for generously purchasing a new gown, the evening wrap, lingerie, gloves, bag, and shoes for me. Elizabeth was pleased that I could join them. After settling the bill for our purchases, Elizabeth led the way to the car, where we carefully stored everything. During the drive home, I observed Ava resting her head on Rachel's shoulder, with Rachel leaning against Ava. They looked like such a lovely young couple, and I couldn't wait to see them make their debuts together in December. The remainder of the summer passed by swiftly. We managed to meet a few more times before Rachel and Ava returned to school for their senior year. Throughout the fall semester, the girls stayed in touch with regular phone calls. Elizabeth and I would also meet for lunch about every other week. When the girls came home for Thanksgiving, we all gathered that Saturday for lunch to discuss plans for the following Saturday. Ava and Rachel mentioned that they would be leaving college around noon on Friday to ensure a good night's rest at home. We agreed to meet at Thomas and Elizabeth's around 11 on Saturday, giving us ample time for hair and makeup before getting dressed without feeling rushed. Elizabeth informed us that we all had appointments at her beauty parlor that afternoon for manicures, pedicures, and hairstyling. As we parted ways, we all expressed anticipation for the upcoming Saturday. The 7 days leading up to the girls' debut seemed to crawl by in anticipation of the much-awaited event. Ava and Rachel arrived home safely on Friday afternoon. I had a brief chat with Ava, reminding her to wear knee-highs instead of her garter belt and stockings for her pedicure. I also advised her to dress in a simple skirt and blouse with flats. My daughter Emma had a quick conversation with her Aunt Ava, which always seemed to bring joy to Jean, whether as Ava or not. After Emma was done, I arranged to pick up Ava the next day when I dropped Emma off at Mom's for another round of spoiling. On Saturday morning, I was up early, making final preparations. My partner understood my absence once again. After a swift shower, I dressed in satin lingerie, knee-highs, a short-sleeved cotton blouse, a knee-length denim skirt, and flats. Emma's overnight bag was ready to go. I grabbed my purse, ensured Emma was all set, and headed to Mom's. Ava and Mom were waiting for me when I arrived. I could sense Ava's nerves building for the evening ahead. I reassured her that everything would be fine and told her to relax. As we left, Ava received heartfelt hugs from both her niece and Mom. Mom expressed her pride in Ava, anticipating the evening's events and requesting pictures to commemorate the occasion alongside those from Ava's past roles as a bridesmaid and bride. With Mom's encouraging words ringing in her ears, Ava hugged her tightly before we set off for the Miller's house. As we approached the front door, Thomas warmly welcomed us. He mentioned that his wife and daughter were ready and would join us shortly. Curious, Thomas inquired if Ava was starting to feel any pre-event jitters. Ava confessed to a hint of nervousness. Thomas offered words of reassurance, assuring her that everything would be all right. Just then, Rachel and Elizabeth emerged, signaling they were prepared to leave. We swiftly arrived at the beauty salon, where we were promptly ushered into a changing room. There, we shed our outer garments, shoes, and stockings, donning pink salon smocks and slippers. Seated at adjacent shampoo bowls, we were covered with shampoo capes for a relaxing shampoo and conditioning treatment. Glancing over at Ava, I could tell she was relishing this indulgent moment of feminine pampering. With towels draped over our heads, we proceeded to our stylist stations. Soon enough, rollers and hairnets were in place, and we found ourselves under the dryers, with Ava and Rachel positioned between Elizabeth and me in the row of dryers. As we dried our hair, manicures and pedicures were expertly carried out. Elizabeth and I opted for similar shades of nail polish, leaning towards the red spectrum, while Ava and Rachel both chose vibrant pink hues. Ava couldn't help but smile at how lovely her nails looked once they were done. Next, we were ushered to another area of the salon where specialized makeup chairs awaited us. Donning plastic shower cap-like covers over our rollers, the makeup artists skillfully applied foundation, blush, eyeshadow, and mascara. After outlining our lips with a lipstick pencil, they filled them in with layers of creamy lipstick, perfectly matched to our nail colors. Returning to the styling stations, our hairnets and rollers were removed, and our hair was styled and set with hairspray. Ava appeared entranced by her own transformation throughout the process. Once we changed back into our regular clothes, Elizabeth settled the bill, generously tipping our stylists and makeup artists for their assistance. Rachel inquired how Ava felt after all the pampering. Ava responded with a simple, very feminine, prompting smiles from Elizabeth and Rachel. As we returned to the Miller's residence, it was time for us all to don our gowns and prepare to depart. Despite our attempts to reassure her, Ava seemed increasingly nervous. Rachel and her mother prepared in one bedroom while Ava and I readied ourselves in another. Our gowns and lingerie awaited us in the room. Ava undressed completely, and I followed suit. As she began dressing, I offered her an encouraging smile and reminded her to be careful not to smudge her makeup. Garter belts and stockings were delicately donned, followed by bras and panties, with Ava carefully placing her silicone forms into her bra. Elizabeth had considerately provided sanitary pads for us, eliciting a playful remark from me about the advantages of not needing tampons, to which Ava responded with a groan and a playful eye roll. Despite Ava's palpable nervousness, she proceeded to don her long ankle-length white satin slip and 3-inch heels, mirroring my attire. With Ava's assistance, I slipped into my gown, ensuring the back was properly fastened. Just as I turned to help her, Ava complimented me, expressing a wish to look half as lovely as I did. Blushing at her kind words, I assured her that she would undoubtedly shine tonight as one of the evening stars. Then, it was my turn to assist her into her gown, ensuring the zipper was secured. We adorned ourselves with jewelry, Ava opting for pearl earrings and a borrowed strand of pearls from Rachel, while I wore a gold necklace and matching earrings. As we were sliding on our elbow-length gloves, Rachel and Elizabeth entered the room. Rachel radiated the elegance of a debutante, clad in her white gown and gloves. Elizabeth praised Ava's appearance, but Ava modestly remarked that she felt like a mere shadow compared to Rachel's beauty. Rachel swiftly dispelled Ava's protest, assuring her that she looked equally stunning. Elizabeth and I watched the exchange with fond smiles. Suddenly, Rachel dashed out of the room, returning moments later with a bottle of perfume, generously spraying both Ava and me with its feminine scent. "Now we're all wearing the same fragrance," she declared with satisfaction. Grabbing our matching bags, we made our way to the front door, where Thomas awaited us, dashing in his tuxedo. He remarked on how he would be the envy of every man at the club, escorting 4 beautiful women. Elizabeth affectionately teased him about his impeccable taste. Since we were all decked out in our gowns, Mr. Miller suggested renting a limousine for the evening instead of cramming into the family car. With caution, we climbed into the limo, careful to lift our gowns to avoid tripping and protecting our hairstyles. Rachel and Ava sat close, holding hands, their laughter filling the air like that of schoolgirls. Meanwhile, the Millers and I engaged in quiet conversation about the night's festivities. Before we knew it, we arrived at the club. Thomas alighted first, followed by Elizabeth and me, and then Rachel and Ava. I watched proudly as Ava gracefully exited the limo, holding her gown with care as she stepped onto the pavement. After expressing gratitude to Mr. Miller and the driver, we straightened our gowns and proceeded into the club. The main hall of the club appeared ready to accommodate up to 500 guests, although there were only 12 debutantes, including Ava. Mr. Miller had reserved a table for us at the center of the room, emphasizing his desire for the 2 lovely young ladies to be the focal point of the evening. Rachel and Ava exchanged smiles, their cheeks tinged with a blush. He mentioned that dinner would be served in approximately 30 minutes. Thomas then outlined the evening's agenda. Following dinner, once the tables are cleared, the debutantes and their mothers or sponsors will retire to a private room for final preparations. At the designated time, each girl will be escorted into the room by her mother or sponsor and introduced to the club members and guests. After the introduction, each girl will walk to the center of the room alone, where she will perform a deep curtsy to the club president, who will be positioned at the microphone. Ava, Rachel, you're both familiar with curtsying, correct? Both nodded in confirmation. Thomas proceeded. After the curtsy, the girl will proceed to the stage, where she will be presented with a bouquet of flowers by the secretary and program chair, remaining on stage until all the debutantes have been presented. Meanwhile, the mother or sponsor will return to her seat. Once all the girls are on stage, they will step down and walk around the perimeter of the dance floor, allowing attendees to admire their gowns. Afterward, everyone will return to their respective tables. Any questions? Since there were no queries and all 4 of us needed a visit to the restroom before the evening commenced, we politely excused ourselves and hastened to the appropriate facilities. Inside, we encountered women adorned in gowns of diverse styles, fabrics, and hues. Ava leaned in and whispered, "Amanda, how do I manage in this long dress?" I offered a gentle reminder that she'd need to carefully lift her gown to sit and lower her undergarments. Additionally, I advised her to change her pad afterward. Ava expressed her gratitude before heading into one of the stalls, while I chose another. A few minutes later, we reconvened outside the stalls after attending to our needs. Elizabeth and I did a quick makeup check and refreshed our lipstick, followed promptly by Ava and Rachel. We returned to the table, rejoining our patient host, Mr. Miller, who must have felt a bit abandoned during our absence. Dinner proved delightful that evening, though I noticed both Ava and Rachel barely touched their plates. Upon inquiry, they confessed to feeling nervous. Following dinner, the program chair announced that the debutantes and their mothers or sponsors should gather in the large meeting room. This signaled our departure from Mr. Miller once more. We rose and followed Elizabeth to the designated area. The dozen young women looked resplendent in their white gowns, while the mothers and sponsors exhibited a diverse array of styles. Some of the girls were making last-minute adjustments to their hair and makeup. After a swift check in the mirror, Ava and Rachel deemed themselves presentable as they were. We gathered there for half an hour before the program commenced. The nervous demeanor I observed in both girls earlier seemed to have dissipated. Now, they exuded a quiet confidence and feminine poise. When the first girl was introduced, I noticed Ava giving Rachel a quick squeeze of the hand, reciprocated in kind. 8 young women were presented before Rachel. I heard the club president announce, "I now present Rachel Miller, escorted and sponsored by her mother, Elizabeth Miller." As Rachel entered the room, she received polite applause. Elizabeth escorted Rachel to the center before returning to our table. Rachel gracefully curtsied to the club president and proceeded to the stage to accept her flowers. Then, the club president announced, "I now present Ava Reagan, escorted and sponsored by her sister, Amanda Bradley." Ava was recommended tonight by Thomas and Elizabeth Miller. Ava received the same warm applause as Rachel and the other girls. After curtsying to the club president, she joined Rachel on stage to receive her flowers, both girls radiant with joy. The final 2 young women were swiftly presented. Once all were on stage, the audience gave them a hearty round of applause. Each debutante then carefully descended the steps, lifting her gown slightly to avoid tripping. The grand promenade around the floor followed, allowing attendees to get a closer look at each of the young women. A tuxedoed member of the club escorted each one. Ava and Rachel looked radiant as they circled the room before returning to our table. As a band began playing dance music, the young women and their sponsors moved to a small alcove where a professional photographer was ready to capture the joy of the moment. Rachel posed alone and then with her mom, while Ava posed solo and with me. Elizabeth then requested pictures of Rachel and Ava together, herself with the girls, me with the girls, and finally, all 4 of us. She ensured that Ava received 6 copies of each of her and Rachel's pictures. Upon returning to the table, we savored the music playing in the background. The club president approached Rachel and invited her to dance, followed by a similar request for Ava after Rachel's dance. Uncertain but willing, Ava joined the dance floor while Rachel paired up with her father. Mr. Miller then took Ava for a dance, praising her grace and appearance and expressing his happiness in gaining a daughter-in-law like her. Naturally, Ava blushed deeply in response. Throughout the evening, many club members congratulated Rachel and Ava on their successful debuts and admired their appearance, leaving both girls positively radiant. As the night drew to a close, we were grateful to retreat to the limo and head home. Elizabeth had one last surprise for the girls. She revealed that the bridal suite had been reserved for them. "Since you 2 are engaged," she said, "I'm sure you've shared a bed before." Handing them the room key, she explained that their bridal negligées awaited them in the suite, along with fresh satin lingerie, dresses, and heels for the next morning. The limo would pick them up around 11, and they could order anything they liked from room service, courtesy of the Millers. Both girls were taken aback by Elizabeth's comment, but upon realizing its significance, they squealed with joy and hugged Elizabeth and Thomas tightly. Upon arriving at the hotel, Ava and Rachel embraced their parents once more. Rachel then turned to me, expressing her gratitude for ensuring that Ava had a wonderful evening. Ava, too, hugged me tightly, promising to be the best little sister anyone could ask for and thanking me for making the night memorable. Watching them step out of the limo, hand in hand, I couldn't help but admire how truly stunning they both looked. As they vanished into the hotel, feelings of joy and happiness for my dear sister Ava washed over me. Now, Elizabeth and I have the wedding festivities to plan.